Welcome to Nonsense, Season 2, Episode 10, Our Big Story. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm CJ Little.
In just a minute, we'll look at whether the smoking bans of the 90s have all been effective in achieving their goals. Smoking in the boys' room, up next.
I mean, technically, Jeff, you can smoke in the girls' room, and you can smoke in the gender-neutral room, too. It's not just the boys' room.
The story is actually about not being able to smoke in any of those places.
Right?
But before we do it, let's talk about blowing smoke.
Like up people's asses?
Yes.
Why, I thought you'd never ask. You know who DiskWorld is, right? They're one of the largest computer supply marketers in the country, and their ads are scattered throughout every major computer magazine that you've ever read.
Fantastic.
They're looking for people like you who want to run their own computer supply business. You'll have the buying power and merchandising skills of DiskWorld working with you.
Wonderful.
And if you don't think that's important, Jeff, just remember in 18 months, DiskWorld became one of the largest distributors in the nation. $24.95 gets you started with everything you need to know. If you decide it isn't for you, send it back. They might send you your money. If it is for you, you'll know what to do next.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
By the way, spoiler alert, recruit more people. That's what you do next. You just keep recruiting people all the way down. Every $24.95 you get $5 of it. That's how this whole fucking game works.
How many people don't bother to ask for the $25 back when they decide this isn't for them?
All of them.
Yeah, of course.
All of them.
They've picked that number.
There's like this guy that ran this ad in the paper and he'd be like, send $5 now. And he'd put a P.O. box. That's it. You didn't get anything. It just said, send $5 now. And people would. And they'd just go collect money. And it's like, this is great. I mean, this is totally the way that it should work.
Let's go.
Let's talk about smoke.
I had a girlfriend in high school.
Okay, well, that makes one of us.
Who I was head over heels in love with.
All right.
She was lovely and wonderful and becoming a woman, as one does in high school if you're a woman.
Sure.
And I was 120 pounds, soaking wet, skinny, nothing. And for whatever reason, she liked me.
Sure.
This was the greatest thing in my life.
I can tell there's a butt coming.
We were at a float meeting. We were kind of kissing and...
Hold on. We were kind of kissing? How are you kind of kissing?
There were more things going on. That's why I said kissing was one of the items.
To be rounded. I understand.
Yeah. Anyway, this wonderful woman either had taken up or had just decided to reveal to me that she was now smoking.
Oh.
And I literally was gagging.
Licking an ashtray.
And I adored her. I absolutely, we lasted about another week and I just couldn't take it. I couldn't do it.
Do you think she still smokes?
I have no idea. I haven't talked to her in decades.
Sounds like you got some homework.
I'm going to let her go and lead her life.
By the way, I like when you call her up after this show and what you hear back is, hi, Jeff, how are you? Like, I guess you already answered my question. I mean, I feel like you and I are very aligned on our general hatred for smoking, somewhere between dislike and hatred. I think mine has really developed into a hatred.
I really wanted to not hate it because I thought she was just great.
Yeah, sure. And she probably is great. That's okay.
Yeah, I just couldn't. Everything in my body. I'm not asthmatic. Yeah. So I think I could breathe the air of smokers, but whatever. It burns my eyes.
Terrible.
It's not, it's not a pleasant thing for me, even without the burden of asthma or other issues. By the way, our friend Jay told me a story. His dad smoked. His dad is a long-time, very respected physician.
Okay.
And Jay told me a story of when his dad smoked. He only smoked for a couple of years.
Sure.
And he'd have like the cigarette in his hands as he was pointing to the x-ray saying, this is where the cancer is right here.
Sure. Of course. It's hard to see over the smoke, but it's back there. Yeah.
That's right there.
Yeah, that's definitely what you want.
The irony of that is just great.
Yeah, it's not fun. So yeah, smoking and I are not friends. Never have been, fortunately. Like there was a point in time where I would like smoke a cigar once in a while. It's like, why am I doing this? This is terrible.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy any of this.
The nice thing about cigars, I'll tell you the nice thing about cigars.
Yeah.
70 times the carcinogens of cigarettes.
Oh yeah, no, you get it all at once. I'm an efficiency guy.
So you get a value. It's a value.
Cigars are like the Doge of cigarettes. It's great. Sure. You just get one, you just go straight to cancer. You don't pass go. Sure. You don't collect $200. You just go straight to cancer. The reason I'm bringing this up, because look, I'm not a fan of smoking. I'd much rather talk about technology or science, but I'm gonna bring that around here.
Sure.
Is I found myself a couple weeks ago. I was in West Hollywood and I went to a bar that I used to go to quite often. It's Barney's Beanery.
Yeah,
I probably haven't been there in a decade, but like Barney's Beanery has not changed one bit.
I probably haven't been there in 8 days.
8 whole days?
I go there a lot.
Do you go to Barney's Beanery?
I love Barney's Beanery.
When do you go to Barney's? Like for lunch?
Oh, when there's an away.
You're in bed by 8 o'clock.
Oh no, never. I go to watch away games.
Really?
A lot of times I want to go and I want to have like a salad and I want to watch an away game. Barney's Beanery is a great place to do it.
I've gotten 0 of those phone calls from you of like, hey, I'm going to Barney's Beanery.
If you ever want to go, I love going to Barney's Beanery.
It doesn't sound authentic now. It just sounds like I called you out on it. And now you're like, sure, if you want to go.
Sure.
So I walk into Barney's Beanery. I haven't been there in 10 years because my friend Jeff never invites me there. This place, by the way, for folks that don't live in LA, is a legend. It's been there for, I don't know, since the 60s, since the 70s. It's been there forever.
Used to have sawdust on the floors.
Oh, really?
Used to be one of those kind of places.
I don't know if I remember that. Yeah, but it totally, it still feels like that.
And it's had sawdust for decades.
But I remember being there right around the time that the California bar smoking ban went into effect. I think it was 1998.
Sure.
And I was there with our other mutual friend, Alex. And there were a bunch of people bitching about the fact that they couldn't smoke in bars anymore.
Yeah, sure.
You know, people are, I'm going to do it anyway. And this is back when like the sheriffs, so West Hollywood is enforced by the LA County sheriffs. The sheriffs would still come in and like write people tickets and like literally bounce them out for smoking in bars.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of people that were complaining about this. Bar owners thought their revenue was going to go down, and folks felt that their rights were being taken away from them because, you know, look, even if it's dangerous to me. I'm not hurting anybody else. So why are you taking this away from me? Sort of like wearing a helmet on a motorcycle, where it's like, you should just wear a fucking helmet or maybe not ride the motorcycle. But this is late 90s, right? Because there was this desire, I feel, that everybody should have the right to specifically a workplace that's free of secondhand smoke. And that was the part to me about the bar, is that it's not so much this is just a bar where you go to drink and hang out. People work here, and they shouldn't have to breathe your shitty smoke.
I did stand-up comedy around that time. I literally remember a day where I was looking out into the crowd through
and you could see them.
thick smoke. And the next night, I was looking out at the crowd through just clear air.
It's pretty nuts. I mean, it was that fast.
Yeah.
While I think now for most listeners, this is going to seem, at least certainly for me, it seems pretty simple, but that was pretty revolutionary then, right? So in 95, California became the first state to ban smoking in nearly every workplace, including public buildings, indoor spaces, and restaurants. They had excluded bars. It was 3 years later in 98 that the ban was extended to include bars, taverns, and I think gaming clubs. At that point, by 98, most indoor workplaces across the state were covered by some sort of secondhand smoke protection. And then in 2016, California actually expanded the types of tobacco products banned from use indoors to include vapes and marijuana, basically anything that is smoke or smoke-esque.
How did that take till 2016?
Because I feel like it was not as intrusive. Like, it's not as terrible as the cigarette smoke. It's also not, someone will smoke a cigarette tip to tail. Try doing that with a joint, right? Unless you are fucking Snoop, you're going to go to sleep by the time you get to the third joint. So like, it's sort of a self-solving problem.
I go to the Mamba Center, and as we park the car and get out, there is a thick smell of marijuana that's come from a vape.
Yeah, that's just the Lakers team. Once they go in,
it's Kevin Durant. It's not even the Lakers.
It's just Durant. It's just Durant and the cloud behind him. By the way, I didn't know this. In January of last year, 2024, California had updated the law to include that all hotel and motel rooms must be 100% smoke-free.
Smoke-free, yeah.
I did not know that. That is lovely. So now you're protecting workers and guests alike, because to me, I would every now and again get this room that somebody had clearly smoked in beforehand, and it was just gross.
But if you call the front desk, they'll actually, at least they would for a long time, they would bring in these deionizers.
Yeah. Ozone,
and they would magically get the smoke smell out.
Yeah, that smoke smell, my understanding of this, I'm not sure I'm right. My understanding of it is what you're typically smelling is the unburnt fuel. Like, that's what the smoke is, right? It's unburnt fuel. You hit it with ozone, basically O3, right?
Yeah.
It completes the oxidation, or completes the burning process, if you will. And that's how you ultimately get rid of the smell. The fact that that's gone, or at least on its way out, is lovely. But it's when I was sitting, being one of literally the old guys at Barney's Beanery, as me and one of our other listeners, a friend of mine, we were there on karaoke night. They literally pulled us out of line because we looked so fucking old. We went to Barney's Beanery. There's a whole line of like 20 somethings.
Sure.
And then our old gray hair asses at the end.
Sure.
And the bouncer literally walked up and he was like, "What are you guys doing here?" I was like, "We're just here for a drink." And he's like, "Well, you know, for like $20, I can just let you in." And I was like, No, we're good. And he looked at me and he's like, "Come on." And just brought us in. And my friend Jeff was like, "Wait, why? What happened?" And I was like, "We're not cool. We're literally killing the line. We're the coolers of the line.
Sure.
No one under the age of 30 is driving by here going, 'Oh, let's go stand in that line with those guys.'"
That explains why I always get ushered to a table right away.
100%, right?
Now
like,
I understand.
"Oh, it must be an AARP meeting." And they're like, "No, now it can return to." But hey, whatever. It worked for me. I didn't care.
They're just trying to get me in and out as fast as possible.
They literally are like, "Sir, we can't tell you not to come in here because that's age discrimination. We can give you a table at the back where there's no lights." which is what they did. But it got me thinking about this, just how broad this invisible net of science is, right? That has kept everyone, myself included, and everyone else in this bar, more healthy and more safe.
Yes.
Because ultimately, that ban came from science. And that's why I thought it'd be interesting to talk about and sort of look at the smoking ban through the lens of nonsense.
I love it. Count me in.
The most common rationale cited for restricting smoking is the negative health effects associated with secondhand smoke, or SHS, as some people call it. The inhalation of tobacco smoke by people who are not smokers. That's typically what secondhand smoke is, right? You are not choosing to smoke. You are now inhaling someone else's smoke. The diseases that come from that, by the way, include heart disease, cancer, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD.
Of course.
So, I don't know. It's not like you're going to get a cold. It's a little bit worse than that. It's just a hair worse. Now, the number of smoking bans around the world has increased substantially in the late 20th century and early 21st century, mainly due to increased knowledge. And that's the part to me that is so interesting. It's science working, right? It's like, and we sort of take this for granted. Many organizations, such as the World Health Organization, which what do they know? I mean, I don't know if we support those guys anymore, but they support smoking bans on the basis that the improved health outcomes are from reducing exposure to the secondhand smoke and possibly decreasing the number of people who smoke. So it's like a net positive, right? People who don't want to smoke don't get exposed to the secondhand smoke, and you end up with less people smoking. That's their general view. So there's been some meta-analysis done that shows that lifelong non-smokers with partners who smoke in the home have a 20 to 30% greater risk of lung cancer than non-smokers who live with non-smokers.
Wow.
You could sort of just stop the research there.
Sure.
Isn't that just like enough? Like if you live with a smoker,
that's terrible.
Your chances of lung cancer go up by about a quarter to a third. Even non-smokers exposed to cigarette smoke in the workplace have increased lung cancer risk of 16 to 19%.
Sure.
That's just in the workplace where you're not, maybe you're at 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
But your big worry with smoking, by the way, even more than cancer. Obviously for the smoker, emphysema is a horrible death. It's a very painful way to go. But you'll get arterial issues.
All breathing and cardiovascular diseases are not pretty. None of them are like lovely.
You'll get cognitive decline. You'll get memory problems. You'll get dementia. You'll get Alzheimer's disease. These things are all caused by secondhand smoke.
Sign me up. It sounds great. Wait, no, it's terrible. Why the fuck would you do this?
Awful.
The CDC says the risk of coronary heart disease is increased by about 25 to 30% when one is exposed to secondhand smoke. So like everything has told us that this is not great and that the risk increases with more exposure, right? So it's proportional to your exposure.
Sure.
When I was researching this, part of what totally surprised me was that non-smokers are exposed to the same carcinogens on account of tobacco smoke as active smokers. And I didn't expect that, right? I would assume when you're dragging on the cigarette, you're getting more, but it turns out you get the same exposure. Some well-established carcinogens have been shown by the tobacco company's own research to be present at higher concentrations in secondhand smoke than in mainstream smoke. I'm not sure why that is. I'm assuming it's because you get
intuitively that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, it's particularly like benzoprene and a polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons and radioactive decay products such as polonium-210.
You'd be dragging all that stuff through the cigarette
filter, maybe you don't get it out of the filter. I don't know. But the fact that it was their own data that showed this, I was just like, all right. To be fair here, there's like 70 known carcinogens that are pumping around from these cigarettes. So it's a handful that are worse.
And most of them are coming off the tip of the cigarette, the burning tip of the cigarette.
Just terrible.
By the way, backtrack 1 second, because you have the same problem. You actually have a bigger problem with vaping. Anytime you put something that hot, that close, and you're inhaling from it. In vaping, you're inhaling heavy metals. There's kind of no way around it.
When vaping first came along, I was like, oh, this seems like a nice alternative to burning something. Like, this seems like this is better. And it was my wife who was like, but is it? Like, do we really know? And I was like, well, it's got to be better. And it turns out in pretty short order, you're like, oh, no, it might actually be worse.
Not better at all.
It might be worse.
You're still taking something up to a very, very high temperature, which is causing many parts of it to become carcinogenic. And the actual thing that takes it up to the high temperature now is an added danger.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's a 2004 study that showed that New Jersey bars and restaurants had more than 9 times the levels of indoor pollution of neighboring New York City, which had already enacted its smoking bans, which intuitively seems true because you're not smoking inside. Right. We've been banning some things, and I'll come back to how we got here in the US, but I wanted to wind back, as I like to do on this show, to sort of when we started seeing bans, and this surprised me. So in 1590, Pope Urban VII moved against smoking in church buildings. It was the Pope.
I thought you were going to say 1990. 1590.
1590, right? One of the world's earliest smoking bans was the Roman Catholic Church, which started in like 1575. This was the use of tobacco in any church in Mexico. In 1590, Pope Urban VII was like, he threatened to excommunicate anyone who took tobacco in the porchway of or inside a church. And then his successor, Pope Urban VIII, imposed similar restrictions in 1624. This folks, everyone should just mark their calendar, because it is very far and few between the times I find myself agreeing with the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
2025 just keeps delivering surprises by the minute. This goes back, hundreds of years. King James VI published an anti-smoking treatise. The Ottoman Sultan Murad IV prohibited smoking in his empire in 1633. That was an empire-wide order, to be clear here.
And what was the punishment for smoking in the empire?
Oh, it was the Ottoman Empire. I'm sure it was just a fucking fine. No, they killed you. I don't know what they did. It was the Ottoman Empire.
They executed you.
Yes, exactly. That is the level of hatred for smoking they have. And I'll tell you, I have been on public transit before when someone's smoking, and I'm just like, I kind of want to murder you. I think that's kind of the right punishment. The earliest citywide European smoking bans were enacted shortly after this. So this is like around like the late 17th century. So Berlin, Königsberg, Stettin, these are all places that had banned smoking in like the late 1700s.
Yeah.
This was prior to Russia in 1865 that had a ban on smoking in the streets. So even Russia, not a place you would think of to have banned smoking, had banned smoking. The first building in the world to ban smoking was the old government building in Wellington, New Zealand in 1876.
Okay.
They got around to it as well. And we've seen a bunch of these, including, and this was the other part where I was like, oh, wow. The first modern attempt at restricting smoking was Nazi Germany. They banned smoking in every university, post office, and military hospital. They conducted major anti-tobacco campaigns until the end of their regime in 1945. So again, 2025, I did not have on my bingo card expecting to find myself aligned with some aspects of Nazi Germany. But
the Catholic Church and Nazi Germany.
Yeah. So, you look under rocks, you find all sorts of interesting things. So then we get up towards the latter part of the 20th century. As this research increases, the tobacco industry, of course, knows this is coming.
Yeah.
They launch courtesy awareness campaigns. So that's what they called them.
Nicotine's a stimulant.
Yep.
So you feel really good when you're smoking your cigarette. It really makes you feel like, you're basically a little bit high.
Yeah.
And it's highly, highly addictive.
So the tobacco industry, of course, because they want to keep selling these things, because it turns out the addictive stuff people keep buying, they were encouraging tolerance and courtesy. That was their sort of solution to avoid smoking bans. So they were encouraging states to pass laws providing separate smoking sections, which I also find amusing. So now you get into like modern times, right?
Are you going to fly in the front of the plane or the back of the plane?
Oh God, I can't even imagine. I mean, I started flying in the late 80s and I don't remember flying on a smoking flight. I probably was a little less sensitive to it then, since I had a whole bunch of family members that smoked. But modern times, I can barely handle the guy with his shoes off next to me, let alone some dipshit smoking. In 1975, the great state of Minnesota enacted the Minnesota Clean Indoor Air Act, making it the first state to restrict smoking in most public spaces. So they were sort of the first ones at a state level to do it.
Yeah.
Aspen, Colorado became the first city in the U.S. to restrict smoking in restaurants. That was in 1985. Beverly Hills in 1987 initiated an ordinance to restrict smoking in most restaurants, retail stores, and at public meetings. You could sort of see this wave coming at the city, municipality level. 1990, San Luis Obispo in California became the first state to restrict indoor smoking in bars as well as in restaurants, which is super interesting. And then you come up to 1998, how I started this segment, which was this California ban.
Statewide ban.
For the whole state. And that encouraged other states, such as New York, to implement similar regulations. California's ban included a controversial restriction for bars. That was from 94 that they didn't remove until 98.
Sure.
As of April 2009, you had 37 states with some form of a smoking ban. By now, 2024, 2025, you've got most states have some form of a ban in the major locations, bars, restaurants, or work sites.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, and I'll put a link in our show notes, if you look at the graph of states that don't have a ban on any sort of designated areas or separate ventilation areas, or only banned in one place, bars, restaurants, or work sites, the pocket is the southeast, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Which is really fascinating to me. All of the west, most of the north, most all of the northeast, they've got you can't smoke in these areas.
Yeah.
But if you look at the southeast, it's just the Wild West. This is another stat that fascinated me. According to a 2018 Gallup poll, 25% of U.S. adults believe that smoking should be completely banned in the country.
25%.
Making it the highest level, 25% of U.S. adults, which marks the highest level of support recorded by Gallup ever. Previously, the percentage of adults supporting that measure would fluctuate between like 11 and 24% over the 30 years of tracking this. So that's good. It's on the uptick.
Yeah.
There was a 2009 report that showed that smoking bans reduce the risk of coronary heart disease and heart attacks.
Of course.
There's another systematic review around the same time that showed that bans on smoking in public places were associated with a significant reduction of incidence of heart attacks. The lead author said that this review suggested that a nationwide ban on smoking in public places could prevent between 100 and 200,000 heart attacks in the U.S. per year.
Wow.
That's insane.
But if you're going to die from something smoking related, if you're going to smoke
make it be a heart attack,
and it's going to kill you, yeah, Yeah, I think the heart attack's the better way out than the cancer. Sure. The cancer's a painful way to go.
All right. Well, your death squad sounds like a fun place to work. You're just sitting at the table, just going like, I had a heart attack. You'll be fine.
Pick one. You'll
be fine.
Cake or death.
A 2014 review and meta-analysis found that smoke-free legislation was associated with an approximately 10% reduction in preterm births and hospital attendance for asthma, which is kind of nuts. Yeah. The point is there's overwhelming evidence that tells us bans on smoking and especially reduction in secondhand smoke exposure helps the whole population at large.
Yeah.
Super cool. I think this is super interesting, and I'm very keen to tell this part of the story. But of course, I need that nonsense angle. What got me thinking was what you alluded to earlier, smoking on a plane.
Yeah.
Right? Because like that's even harder. You're on a plane for anywhere from, whatever, half an hour to 12 hours. And if you've got people smoking, it's all the same air.
Yeah, sure.
It's not like you can magically have a non-smoking section.
You can't open a window.
Well, you can, but it's a one-time open. You don't get to fly anymore. It was 1969. Who was the consumer advocate that was the first in the United States to call for a smoking ban on airlines? You know who this is?
Ralph Nader.
Ralph Nader. Fresh on seatbelts, just taking away your right to be thrown from your car.
Sure.
Now he wants to take away your right to fucking smoke on a plane. Fucking Ralph Nader. So he put on pressure for an in-flight smoking ban. And you had flight attendants unions, again, the people who are working there having to deal with your shitty smoke.
Can I ask you a question real quick before you go on?
Yeah, of course.
When you're on a plane and you're a smoker, I see people at the Laker game all the time. And the halftime is coming. They cannot even wait
they're vibrating.
For halftime. Yep. They have to go back to the chairman's room where they can smoke. There's two places in the Mama Center where you're allowed to smoke. They can't even wait till halftime. It's like 3 minutes to halftime. Yeah. And they're all bolting out because they need their nicotine fixed.
Sure.
My question is this. On an airplane where you guys say you're on a 12-hour flight, what do these people do when they need their nicotine fix?
Same thing. There's a smoking room outside in the wing.
I don't remember that.
You just go ahead. Yeah, go on.
I do want to be really clear when I say this about nicotine. Sure. Tobacco has natural nicotine. Absolutely. Sure. What has changed is smoking companies have been able to isolate the nicotine and therefore
juice it up.
Yeah, and therefore juice it up to the point where tobacco is so much more addictive.
Yeah, of course. When you see a juice bottle, it's like no sugar added. And it's like, but you took apple juice and cooked it down until it was just sugar and then added that and called it apple juice.
Pure sugar.
Like, sure. Okay, fuckers. I think now, I don't know because I'm not a smoker, but I think now it is easier to manage those highs and lows because you have nicotine patches and you have nicotine gum.
So that's what they're doing.
I assume.
On a long flight.
Yeah, I think that's what you do now with the bans that are in place. Those didn't exist, though, 30 years ago.
Sure.
You couldn't just roll into a CVS and buy nicotine gum like you can now. So I think it was a harder thing to figure this out. United Airlines, they created a non-smoking section in 1971. They were the first airline to do so. In 1994, Delta was the first airline to ban smoking on all worldwide flights.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big gap between the two. I also find the non-smoking section to be fucking comedy on an airplane because like
it was like in the back, right?
Like the smoke just yeah, sure, wherever it was, doesn't matter.
But the air is still being pumped around the whole airplane.
Like the middle seats, they're just like, all right, enjoy your fucking middle seat, asshole. And people smoking on both sides, like it's the non-smoking seat. I mean, even at restaurants, I remember because I lived in LA. I moved to LA in the mid '90s. I'd go back to Michigan where I'm from, and they'd still have non-smoking sections, and it was just the most disgusting
in restaurants.
Thing in restaurants. Sure. So I can only imagine on an airplane how terrible that would be. But in 1976, they got our shit together, and the U.S. Civil Aeronautics Board banned cigar and pipe smoking on aircrafts.
Well, that's a good start.
But under pressure from tobacco interests, they limited the ban in 1978. So they banned and unbanned smoking in 1984, and this was the chairman, Dan McKinnon, said, philosophically, I think non-smokers have rights, but it comes into marked conflict with practicalities and the realities of life. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? You have rights, but life.
Means I'm going to find a way that I can still sell cigarettes to people who are on planes.
Can I just put that after the sentence of like, I understand that you have rights, but it comes into marked conflict with the practicalities and realities of life. What does that even mean? What was he even thinking? Anyway, okay. So after years of debate over health concerns, Congress finally acted in 1987 to lead a ban on in-flight smoking. So this is up all the way up until 1987.
Yeah, sure.
In 1988, airlines in the U.S. banned smoking on domestic flights of less than 2 hours, and then it was extended to domestic flights of less than 6 hours in February of 1990. So by the early 90s, late 80s, you already had this ban, at least in the U.S., in place.
That's probably when you had to have like nicotine gum, to make it possible for someone to go 6 hours
to be able to,
without just absolutely exploding.
Jonesing. Yeah, exactly. And then they expanded that to all domestic and international flights in 2000. So you had about a 10-year gap where you were on flights less than 6 hours, and then in 2000 to all flights. The 1990 ban applied to passengers and the cabin of the aircraft. but not to the flight deck.
Oh my.
Pilots were still allowed to continue smoking after the 1990 ban. And this was, and at first I was like, well, wait, why? And this was due to exactly what you're talking about. The concerns of the potential flight safety issues caused by nicotine withdrawal in chronic smokers.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that, so they were allowed to smoke pretty much any time except for taxiing, takeoff, and landing. Those are the only times they couldn't smoke.
Okay.
In researching this, I did come across some retired pilots who would talk about, like, I think it was on a 747. There was like a little vent above the pilots, like in the cockpit. There was like some little vent above theirs. And this guy talked about how he would crack the vent at speed, at 540 knots.
Oh my.
He'd crack the vent, shove like a spoon in it to keep it open, and smoke a cigarette. And like his co-pilot wouldn't even know because it would just get sucked right out of the front of the plane. And I'm like, dude, I don't think any part of this is okay.
You got some wind at that speed. It's amazing the plane didn't blow apart.
You don't put your hand out and do the like wavy thing like when you're on the freeway. Your hand just gets ripped off. And then you're like, why does that pilot have a hook? And you're like, well, there's a vent above the plane.
Also, it's like negative 41 degrees out there. It's really cold.
Negative 41 in any unit that you want. Fahrenheit,
it doesn't
Celsius,
matter.
all the same. Cold as fuck out there. This is also interesting to me. Despite a prohibition of smoking, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, the regulations still mandate that there be functioning ashtrays conspicuously located on the doors of all airplane bathrooms. And that is because there must be a safe place to dispose of a lit cigarette if someone violates the no smoking rule.
Makes sense.
Kind of brilliant. Yeah. I've always wondered why when I'm on like a 737 MAX, right, a plane that I know was built recently, and you can tell that because of all the lack of sensors on the thing that make them crash now and again, there'd be an ashtray on the door. And I'm like, why is this here? We haven't been allowed to smoke on planes in 30 years. Yeah. And it's because of this, because you had airplane crashes, right? You actually had like a crash in 1937 was the first crash that we know of that was from a passenger that lit a cigarette in the toilet, which caused accumulated avgas fumes to ignite. Oh, so that's terrible.
Yeah, that's a problem.
You had a crash in 73 because someone lit a cigarette and threw it in a lavatory waste bin, and it ultimately caught fire.
Sure.
Like, I get that you still want to keep that sort of a place to put it out. What was also interesting to note about this, the whole US FAA, sort of their approach to smoking on airplanes, you've noticed, you were just on a plane recently, there's still a non-smoking light, right? You've got a seatbelt light and a non-smoking light.
I don't remember seeing that. And I also don't remember seeing the ashtray in the lavatory. Now, it might have been there. I just didn't notice. It's
conspicuously located. It's probably on the door. You probably didn't see it. It's probably on the door hidden behind a thing, which I do question. If you have one that's conspicuously located.
If you can't find it, what use?
If you're the fucking idiot that's smoking on the airplane, how the hell do you find it? And I'm assuming, I'm assuming it's so that if you were to smoke, you'd set off the alarm, the flight attendant would come, and that's where they would put it out. I'm assuming.
Got it.
Why they wouldn't just run it under some water? Fucking I don't know. But
sure.
But I get it. It's still there.
However they want to do it.
What was interesting to me was that most aircraft built after the non-smoking regulations were put into place, they have a permanently lit non-smoking sign that cannot be independently turned off. That was added, that modernization was added by the FAA not that long ago. And I think that's kind of interesting because they still had the light, but you had to turn it on.
A switch. There was a switch. Now there's no switch.
Well, actually, here's what's interesting, to be specific about this, because we're a nerd show. This rule was put into effect in just last year, like October of 24. The FAA now, you no longer have to have the switch. You may have the switch. If you have the switch, you need to get an exception from the FAA for your plane certification. You'll get it, but you need the exception.
Okay.
It's sort of their way of saying the preferred path is for you not to put a switch and it's just always on. But if you have the switch, you can still make your plane and go to town.
A switch costs you more money. Why not just hardwire it so it's always on?
That's the point. There are the points like what, just take this out, right? Make it simple. We talked about US FAA. Let's talk about the 51st state, Canada. In 1990, they adopted a non-smoking policy on all their routes. So they were ahead of us, arguably.
Yeah.
In 94, Canada was the first country to ban smoking on all flights operated by Canadian carriers, which I think was like 2, which also covered chartered flights, but not foreign airlines. So if you're a foreign airline, you could fly. It had previously banned smoking on commercial domestic flights in Canada and international flights of less than 6 hours. But then you had this like Japan problem because 3/4 of its passengers on the Japan route were Japanese and 60% of them smoked.
Yeah.
So you had this problem. We had folks that were coming in from Japan and they were afraid. I mean, they had estimated they would lose $22 million in annual revenue on its 14 flights a week. This was the Canadian Airlines because of the ban for Japan. They were really concerned about this. They'd go to a foreign carrier that didn't have the same restrictions.
Yeah, it's a long flight.
Yeah, and you got to start somewhere, right? You got to start somewhere of banning this shit. It's fascinating to me to see that all of this, we've had airplanes since the 30s. We've had commercial travel since the 30s by air. It's really only been the past 30 or so years that you've seen real effective bans on smoking in airplanes. This has not been around for a long time.
I think it's just the whole collective consciousness of the United States people anyway has changed in the last 30 years about smoking. I think there was a tolerance in the 70s where you just kind of accepted, oh yeah, they just smoke, it smells horrible, my eyes burn. But of course they
just deal with it.
They're allowed to smoke, of course.
Yeah, well,
and that's completely changed.
What do you attribute that to? I attribute it to the science. I think the science has been the tip of the spear on that and getting folks to come over to the non-smoking side.
I think there's been a lot of good publicity explaining the dangers of secondhand smoke.
Yeah, but that's the science, right? I mean, you're saying it's the publicity around the science. It's the
science is there in France, and yet they're still smoking left and right.
Yeah,
I just think you have to get the word out strongly.
Yeah, I mean, well, you've got, and also the black box warnings, right? Those have been, I think, I would assume pretty effective for folks that are just dipping into smoking that aren't quite addicted yet. Like you see the pictures, the labels on the side that say, this is the terribleness that's going to happen. So that's been,
and people still don't believe it.
I don't know if you're early. People may not. If you're early in your smoking career.
There are still kids who are smoking.
Yeah, I know. I get that. I always will be.
It's a mystery to me.
So let's get off airlines here for a second. The great country of New Zealand, a couple of years ago, put legislation in effect to basically ban smoking, to ban the purchasing of tobacco by anybody born after a date. I think they said it as January 1st, 2009.
Sure.
So anybody that was born after that date would not be able to purchase tobacco.
And how do I enforce that? I mean, if you actually are checking IDs, and if pass an ID that's below that date, I can bust you.
We presume to do it with booze here in the U.S. and cigarettes, right? You got to be over 18 to buy smokes. Got to be over 21 to buy booze. So we do that here.
I don't think it's particularly effective. I think there's an awful lot of stores that are going ahead just because they want to move the product.
Yeah, and I think you'd see something similar here, but it's at least a start, right? Or at least give them some ability to prosecute or slow those things down. They ended up not implementing that. Recently, I think they had a government change.
New Zealand.
And the new party, New Zealand, the new party coming into power said, we're not going to do this. One of the things they cited as being concerned about was this ram raids. Like they were worried about people going in and robbing stores of their cigarettes to then sell on the black market. And I'm like, well, that seems like an easy problem. Just stop fucking selling them. Like, I don't understand. Like this problem solves itself.
There used to be stores that were called tobacconists. And that's all they sold. So they would be like out of business.
Sort of like a dispensary. Like instead of weed, it was tobacco.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it still breaks my brain when I go to states that are still stuck in like Prohibition era, and you've got to go to a state liquor store to buy liquor. Like that just breaks my brain.
Well, I'm going to give you some bad news here.
Oh boy. I like bad news.
It used to be that they would say, you could have alcohol. You should. It's good for your stomach. You should have a drink every few days. That's a great thing.
Sure.
Alcohol is a group 1 carcinogen.
Oh yeah. That's why I switched to cocaine.
Okay, that's better.
Just sprinkle on my cereal. It's great. Everything's numb.
Fantastic. Good for you.
You get all the house cleaning done before 8 a.m. It's wonderful.
Good for you.
I mean, look, it does seem like everything in life is basically trying to kill you, right? That's why, that's the joke about Prop 65.
Oh, but let's at least start with the things that we know are group 1 carcinogens. Let's just take those as much as possible out of our lives.
I found the smoking regulations, and specifically how they're applied to airplanes, to be just fascinating.
Yeah.
And the idea, and unfortunately, I missed most of this, right? I did start traveling internationally in the 90s.
I remember it.
Oh, yeah. I'm happy that I think I just missed it. I can't recall a time somebody was smoking next to me. I'm sure it happened. I just can't recall a time that
I didn't have them next to me because I wasn't sitting in the smoking section. But I swear, the back of the plane, there was tons of people smoking back there, and that air would just come right up into the non-smoking as if there was no invisible membrane between us.
As if the reality is actually true. There is no invisible membrane between you.
Exactly.
I'd be in a non-smoking seat next to somebody in a smoking section. I'm like, how does this fucking work?
It doesn't.
I do remember the ashtrays in the armrests. Yeah. I do remember on more than one occasion getting one that had cigarette butts in it.
Oh, of course.
Gross.
You would think they would have been cleaned between flights, but no, they frequently weren't.
It was Braniff. What do you expect?
I don't know.
Okay, so that was my smoking recollection. I feel like you lived this more voraciously than I did.
My mom, as a young woman in her late teens, early 20s, got on a flight to Hawaii with 2 of her best friends, and they gave away free cigarette samples, a little 3-pack of cigarette samples.
I read about this. Camel would do these promotions
on the plane.
This is so fast. This is brilliant to me, right? Set aside how terrible cigarettes were.
Yeah.
Because you're already in close quarters. Somebody near you is either already going to smoke or be smoking the free samples, which you're going to be like, oh, I might as well try this. So it's kind of brilliant from a indoctrinating smoking into the population doesn't smoke. It's kind of brilliant. I didn't know this until reading this article. That's so amazing amazing that happened to your mom. They're like, oh, here's your free smokes. Like
that was her experience trying smoking.
That's incredible.
And she just, couldn't get 2 puffs in because if you're a non-smoker, and especially by that age, if you haven't started by the age of, 14, it's very hard to start smoking.
Yeah, my brother picked it up around the age of 18, but I attribute it to the fact that he was living with smokers, and I think that just got him pushed over. Anyway, that's my science is making us all better through smoking bans.
That's fantastic. I love the fact that we have caught on as a culture to the dangers of what we're getting when we're next to smokers.
It took us a long ass time, but we got there through a lot of kicking and screaming. But it seems like those campaigns did work. Suing the tobacco companies and using that money to do pro non-smoking campaigns did seem to work.
When you have tobacco that's had the nicotine level really brought up high, as we like to do in cigarettes, so that we can get people super addicted. I have a friend who's been off of cigarettes for 30 years, and still, when he sees one, it still talks to him.
Wow.
It's harder to quit nicotine than it is to quit heroin, is the line that I hear a lot. When they bring that up, is there any secondhand effect to the nicotine?
What do you mean?
Secondhand smoke.
Yeah.
The nicotine that you are inhaling, if I'm smelling that with secondhand smoke, is there an effect to me from the nicotine? Am I getting addicted to the secondhand smoke?
Without a doubt. There were studies, when you cut the smoking out of bars, the non-smoking staff had like a 19x reduction in nicotine from their urine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's something insane like that. Like, you were definitely 100% getting nicotine from secondhand smoke. There's no doubt.
That's crazy.
That's why I look at like secondhand smoke and go, it's a fact. Like, I can't avoid it, right? And you can't take the position of like, well, then just don't work here. Okay, so I work in the restaurant industry and you can smoke in all the restaurants. Now what?
Yeah. Sure.
Right? How does this work?
It's great we look out for people who don't smoke, who want to go to restaurants and who have to work at restaurants as well.
So in California, for the most part, you can't smoke within 25 feet of a door or window of an establishment. And I will be annoyed by somebody smoking on the street.
Legally.
And I'll smell it.
Legally.
And I'll be like, God damn it, this fucking... And I look at them like, they are 40 feet away from any doors or windows. Like, what am I supposed... Like, the only next option is banned.
The smoke travels easily more than 25 feet, for sure. By the way, Barney's Beanery.
Oh, yeah.
Go to Barney's Beanery. You will get the people smoking on the street corner, and the smoke comes right into the restaurant.
I will see people driving, on Ventura Boulevard and have a cigarette at the window, and I immediately turn on the recirc on whatever car I'm in. Because I know I'm going to smell it in seconds. Yeah. And I try to get that knocked out as quickly as I can so I don't have to smell it, because it's super annoying to me.
I don't want to bring up Japan again.
Oh, boy.
I see cigarette butts all over the place here. I saw not one cigarette butt on the street.
Not cigarette butts. You didn't see any trash in Japan.
Yeah, trash. There's no trash.
There wasn't one piece of trash anywhere. Yeah. It's fascinating. Those people have something I think that they call respect, I think is what that is. We've long since banned that here in the States.
Is that right?
We don't have any of that. Yeah. But I think that's what it is.
I wondered how that worked.
And self-respect too. It's really fascinating.
All right. With that, we have to get out of here. But quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this week?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Did you see this Mike Myers and Mark Carney ad for Canada?
I have, because you sent it to me. Yes, but so good.
I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I would really recommend anybody listening that likes comedy or Canada or hockey, watch this. They're chatting inside a hockey rink. They're both wearing Canada jerseys, right? Team Canada jerseys. There's a Canadian flag behind them. It's very pro-Canada.
Sure.
And Carney immediately shames Myers for living in the States and then grills him on his Canadian knowledge, which I've been Canada adjacent my whole life. I grew up right next to Canada. I only knew half the answers to the Canada questions.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah. Of course, Myers passes the Canada test. And then the last scene after, Myers does his elbows up, sort of Gordie Howe statement, they show the back of Myers' jersey and it's last name never, number 51, which I love that joke because as folks who listen to this show know, I only own one piece of Detroit Lions paraphernalia, and it is a t-shirt that has number 16. The last name is Owen, O-W-E-N. So Owen 16. And I love seeing him do the never 51 joke. So it's a really fun little spot that made me smile, and I loved seeing Myers out there representing Canada.
I totally love Never 51, and I love the idea of them never becoming part of the United States. You know what?
Yeah.
But I would be totally game if they were open to a 9th province.
Like just Beverly Hills or like all of California?
No, let's take all of California. Give them all of California. That'd be great.
And their GDP goes up 10x just by absorbing California.
More than that, actually.
Passport control. I do love the idea of having passport control in California, though. Just as people come in and be like, no, I'm sorry. Do you have a visa? No, I'm sorry. No. I'm in. How about you? What have you seen this week?
I saw the Dodgers in Japan. We saw 2 games.
Yes.
Those are 2 games that actually counted against the Cubs.
Yeah.
Dodgers prevailed in both of them. It was great fun at the Tokyo Dome.
You didn't go to any of the minor league games?
No, I didn't see any of the other. I didn't see any of the exhibition games. No, but it was great fun watching him play against the Cubs.
That's awesome.
It was very cool.
It had to be a blast.
Today is opening day in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's right.
Blake Snell will take the mound for the Dodgers today.
Oh, that's amazing.
So happy Major League Baseball opening day. We're playing the Detroit Tigers, your Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, I hope you lose.
And I'll say go blue.
I wish I could go to the game.
I invited you to the game.
Unfortunately, we have to travel. We are traveling today.
Which means there's no episode next week.
There'll be no episode next week because I will be traveling.
By the way, when I was a kid, not to bring this back too much to the segment that you've just finished, because we're past that.
Baseball was just starting.
When I was a kid in the 70s, when I would see baseball players in the dugout,
smoking.
Many of them would be smoking.
Totally. Of course.
It's very common.
I mean, a bunch of them still chew. It's not like tobacco's gone.
I don't see it as much as I used to see it. I used to see the round chew thing in the back pocket.
They don't do that as much, but you can still see when they've got a lipper in. Looks like they got a big old marble in their lip.
Yeah, I don't see it much anymore.
Really? I feel like every game, I watch maybe 5 games a year, but I feel like every game I watch, I still see, several players.
You point it out to me next time we're in a baseball game.
And by the way, like there are a few things, like I find smoking to be especially heinous and gross. I look at chewing tobacco and I'm just like, oh, fuck, how'd you make it worse?
Now there's spit everywhere.
I'm excited that you get to see the Dodgers celebrate their World Series banner. It's going to be a very cool time.
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense. A truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stu Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, My Favorite Overcast, wherever you may get your podcast from.
Nonsense is brought to you by the R.J. Reynolds Company. Oh, wait, wrong page. Nonsense uses SyncThing. Make sure you always have the latest versions of all your files on all your computers anywhere you are in the world. SyncThing does that effortlessly. Free and open source. Be sure to check out SyncThing. Special thanks to our floor director, Tara Chandler.
Thank you, Tara. We'll be every Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us. We should have done the pro tobacco bit today as opposed to the folks at RJ might not be so lovely when
they won't like this episode that much.
Like this episode, no.